Eileen McAtee, and along with Lena Shope, we are the Partnership Cares Project co-directors. And we thank you so much for joining us today as we bring you a webinar on staying well while working in high-stress, traumatic environments. We think this topic is very germane to what so many of you have gone through in these last few months as we've continued our service in the middle of very challenging times. But it's also very important for us to be engaged in our self-care because if we look at the promise of community action, we can only fulfill that promise if we're at our best. So if we could go to the next slide. Okay.
Whoops, I'm sorry.
There we have it. I knew it was in there. Here's the promise of community action. And let's all take a moment to remember what we're all about and why it's important for us to be the best we can possibly be. Community action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. We care about the entire community, and we are dedicated to helping people help themselves and each other. Today's presenters have been with us before. Some of you may have attended the previous webinar they did in December for us for supervisors on a similar topic. Kay and Beth are co-owners of Compassion Resiliency. They are both compassion fatigue specialists, and they have been working throughout our network in a variety of ways with the folks in community action, and they tell us that they love to work with community action. So we love to have them work with us. It's a great partnership. And because they have so much to cover, I'm going to just turn it over to Beth and Kay to begin our presentation.
Beth, are you able to have sound? Denise, Beth lost sound, so I'm going to keep going until I think she's calling in. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today all across the United States. We really appreciate you being with us today. I'm Kay Glidden, and I'm coming to you from the East Coast of Florida on the beach. I moved there a couple years ago, previously from Nebraska, worked in behavioral health and mental health is my background. Beth and I have our own training company called Compassion Resiliency, and prior to COVID, we were traveling across the United States, but since April, we've been doing a lot of webinars.
Hi, everybody. I'm Beth Reynolds Lewis, and I'm calling in and zooming in from Kearney, Nebraska, and so excited to be with you all. Community action is probably one of my favorite groups to work with, and so we're very excited to be here. Kay and I are very informal presenters, and sometimes we talk over each other because we're just excited about what we're teaching, so please be patient with us and ask a lot of questions along the way. So if somebody could forward the slide for me. Apparently something is going on here.
Denise, can you forward the slide? Thanks to everybody for being patient with us.
Yeah.
In just a moment.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm trying to forward and it's, oh, there we go. Okay, I might have it back. So this is where Kay is in Florida, and I'm right here in this house in Kearney. Of course, it doesn't look like that today. We've had so much snow. I need to go out and take a picture.
Happy New Year, right? We are happy for the new year, but we're also a little cautious, right? But we're hopeful because of the vaccine is in the future, and we just can't have another year like 2020.
it's got to be different.
So we have a little opening for you. If you can sit quietly after hearing difficult news.
If in financial downturns you can remain perfectly calm.
If you can see your neighbors travel to fantastic places without a twinge of jealousy.
If you can happily eat whatever on your plate.
If you can fall asleep after a day of running around without a drink or a pill.
If you can find contentment just where you are.
Then you're probably a dog. This is our friend's dog, Maisie. She sits in the front seat like that. So next slide, please. So we're going to start with a tool right off the bat, kind of get you grounded, ready for the webinar. And we're just going to do a short meditation, not very long. If you haven't practiced meditation, I hope you'll try it with us. And to get ready for that, just put your feet on the floor, your spine straight so you don't fall asleep, your hands comfortably in your lap, and lower or close your eyes. Beth will chime the singing bowl to begin, and then she will chime it again to end the meditation. So I want you to just get comfortable where you're at in your seat, and I want you to do a body scan. I want you to note any place in your body that might have some tension, some stress, and just try to release that. Maybe do some neck rolls, lower your shoulders, if you have a headache, maybe massaging your forehead, unclenching your jaw. Just note where that tension is with curiosity. And then if you can't release that stress right now, sometime later this afternoon, maybe you can work on releasing some of that tension. And now I want you to just tune into your breathing, paying attention to where your breath is more predominant. Is it in your nose, your chest, your stomach? Just breathing normally, saying to yourself, inhale and exhale. And as you're doing that, you're going to have some thoughts come into your head, just like monkey chatter, just a lot of thoughts. And that's normal. We can't completely clear our mind of thoughts. But just note with curiosity what you're thinking about, and just let that go. Let it go like thoughts on a cloud. And come back and anchor into the present moment by focusing on your breathing. Every time you bring yourself back to the present moment, you're exercising and training your brain to come back into the present moment. We focus on our breathing because our breath is always in the present moment. We can't breathe in the future, and we can't breathe in the past. So just gently keep bringing yourself back to the present moment through your breathing. May you be happy, may you be healthy, and may you be at peace. So how was that for you? Did you like it? Did you hate it? It's okay if you hated it. It's after lunch, so maybe some of you napped. It's okay. Meditation is a practice. You have to practice it, and then each time you can maybe start with a minute if you're new to meditation, and then keep increasing the time. This app called Insight Timer is free, and we like it because it has a variety of different types of meditations and teachers and types of meditation, different lengths that are guided. And sometimes that's easier if you're first starting a meditation to have guided meditations.
It really is a good starting point for an app. I feel like it's an opportunity to try something out for free. And, just start slowly. If you're new to meditation, or maybe even if you've done meditation for a while, it's okay to do 2 or 3 minutes at a time. Don't think, Kay and I really had to practice. We took a mindful educators class and so that we'd be able to teach mindfulness in our public schools. And at the beginning, we're like, there's no way we would talk back and forth. I'm going to make it 30 minutes of concentrating like this. So be patient with yourself and just kind of get the goodie out of it. Find a voice you like. And there's a lot of other apps out there too, but this is one of our favorites, and I continue to use this too.
So here is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to give you some definitions of these terms, because a lot of times people think they all mean the same thing. Hopefully you had a chance to complete a self-assessment. It's a one-page checklist of signs and symptoms, and if you didn't, that's okay. We're going to review the signs and symptoms and then give you some 10 specific tools to help build your resiliency right now. And throughout the presentation, we're just going to keep giving you resources, because Beth and I try new things all the time, and that's part of self-care, is just trying new things, new adventures, to keep it, fresh and see what you like. So we know it's a strange and difficult time with COVID. We are balancing a lot. We have a lot of responsibility. We have some losses of safety and security and the fear of the unknown. It's just been rough. It's a hard time. We've never experienced it before. And many of us were already tired before the pandemic, right, and depleted. You all have very difficult jobs with helping people. And you're listening to their emotional trauma stories every day, and sometimes we just take that on as our own. So many of us were already tired, but now we're in the pandemic, and we're even more so. I live on the east coast of Florida, like I said, and we can see the launches. We can see Cape Canaveral, and that's a real night launch.
It's a beautiful picture. These are the National Distress Helplines, and we put these in every webinar that we teach now. Just as a reminder, you can't give what you don't have, and I'm sure all of you are very experienced about with helping other people, but it's really important, that idea that if you're not being compassionate with yourself, you can't be compassionate with other people. So these lines are for you too, right? If you think of yourself as a friend, how would you treat your friend? So please keep these numbers in your phone or in a place you can easily access, and not think of them just for the people we serve, but also think of them for yourself and your family members.
Most of us will not experience PTSD from the pandemic, though some might. For example, healthcare workers. We're working with some healthcare workers that probably do have PTSD. Most of us will be resilient and have what's called post-traumatic growth from all of this, an appreciation of life, change priorities, new strengths, new possibilities, and getting closer in some of our relationships.
So this is a great slide that I think, so my background is I originally graduated from UNL to teach secondary science in grades 7 through 12. and then ended up in the child welfare system, did that for quite some time, was a forensic interviewer, and then got dropped into the behavioral health system, not as a clinician, but as kind of a systems manager, networking things. And along my path, I was 50 years old and decided I knew that yoga, for whatever reason, really, really helped me. And this slide helps me put together the science side of my brain with the yogi side of my brain, why this works. So these are things because of MRI and PET scans and all these different medical scanning devices we have of our brains that we now know. So this idea that self-care is consistent use of practices or taking actions that reduce our cortisol or our adrenaline and increase those feel-good hormones like serotonin and dopamine. So every time we have even the littlest self-care practice, it brings our brain into chemistry, and it actually changes sometimes the structure of our brain to be more resilient, so those hormones are easier to access. And we know this is the connection between the body and the brain. Just if you look at it the other way, if you are running on adrenaline and cortisol, those are very harmful to your body, and they actually do damage to organs like our heart and our gut, bone, pretty much our whole body system. So this puts us in place in a way that we know we're doing the bicep curl for our brain, which is interacting through our parasympathetic system and our sympathetic nervous system with our body. So these are the happiness chemicals, and I love these. So that idea, we talk about endorphins as painkillers, but we can access endorphins and we can make them more readily accessible if we put some of these practices in place. This is stuff we've known for hundreds of years, but now we have the scientific proof to show that it really does work. So it's very simple, like oxytocin, the love hormone, playing with a dog, playing with a baby, giving a hug or a compliment. Serotonin is that mood stabilizer, right? Meditating, running, sun exposure is huge, swimming and cycling. So that just gives you an idea about how these work within our system. This is the Compassion Fatigue Workbook, and Kay and I are going to share a lot of books with you today. We also have on our resource list on our website a lot of books, and we aren't selling books, but we like to share ones that we've read or we've been part of and have gone through them ourselves. How about that? If we were all in the room together, which I wish we were, we would actually pass these books around so you could get a feel for them. This book is,
Can I just say they do have the resource list, so everything that we're going to mention today is on that resource list.
Yeah, so circle this one if you like it. This is by our friend and our mentor, our teacher, Francois Mathieu from Canada. Several years ago, 7 years ago now, Kay, we went up to Canada and took the first class, the train the trainer from her to be compassion fatigue trainers. And it's an easy read. It gives you some practical things you can do yourself, some little self-tests, all that kind of stuff. But it's also great. I think it would be fun to do with a book club with it. So we've had different staff members that we've worked with who have started book clubs with this over lunch, and they continue on even now. They'll tell us now, we're still going 5 years later. So they've just taken it to another level. But it's a fabulous resource I feel like for anybody that's in that helping profession.
So have you ever heard of do things faster with less money? That's normal with the jobs that we have working in human services. And there's always that challenge, and that's our reality. But we have to know that this is not your fault if you have compassion fatigue because secondary trauma, because that's just a normal part of the job that we do. We have a really tough job, and it's normal You don't have a mental health issue. It's a normal part. And we talked to your supervisors last month in a webinar similar to this, and we said, we can't blame the staff if they have this. What we need to do if we are in a supervision role is figure out how to support you with different strategies if you do have compassion fatigue and secondary trauma.
Absolutely. I think we need to add the reality, and you're doing it during a pandemic. So that adds a whole other piece to it. So we loved working with the supervisors, and we felt that they were very helpful and supportive of you all and really wanted you to participate today, which I thought was great. So people will ask us, what is compassion fatigue? And compassion fatigue is really the cost of caring for another living thing in emotional pain. So when Kay and I went to class back in Canada, I was really surprised, I think Kay was too, about the other participants in our class. We had a large number of people who were veterinary technicians. We also had some people who were prison guards or related to the prison. We had a smaller group of people who were English as a second language teachers. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is compassion fatigue affects all of us. Even our front desk staff, maybe our janitorial staff. It just affects all of us who are in this helping profession. I love this quote, and this is one of my favorites. The expectation that we can be immersed in suffering and loss daily and not be touched by it is as unrealistic as expecting to be able to walk through water without getting your feet wet. I supervise a small group of people, and I start questioning if they are not showing signs of compassion fatigue. I start wondering, boy, are they getting their feet wet? Are they still really connecting with people? So the reason we share this with you all is not to add guilt or blame, but the idea that this is normal for us to have symptoms of compassion fatigue. One of the first symptoms we want to share with you is the it must be nice syndrome. So I'm going to share a story from Kay and I's past lives. It seems like a long time ago now, Kay.
I know.
We both we were in the same town, worked in the same office. But this is a true story. One day I came into the kitchen at our office, and Kay's making her oatmeal and getting some coffee. I say, Kay, hey, what's up?
Great news. I just found out I have to go to Hawaii for work.
Immediately, I know that we train together. So you know where my head goes. Woohoo, where are we going? How long are we going to be gone? This is going to be great.
Yeah, it's just for me, it's going to be 10 days. I have to do this thing alone.
So, after she said that, the first thing that came to mind was it must be nice. And I think I said it out loud to her, it must be nice. Who's going to cover for your stuff while you're gone?
That would be you. But I'll bring you back one of those coconut bra things, and you'll be good.
I didn't get the coconut bra, but I did get some mangoes, and they were lovely. So now we really have to go back together. But think about this in your work life. When you hear somebody is maybe going on maternity or paternity leave, and hopefully not out loud, or hopefully not amongst peers, but we all start talking about how much leave, are they going to be gone 8 weeks or 12 weeks? How much leave do they have? We also sometimes hear this about bereavement leave and sick leave. Are they really sick? Are they really that close to a relative or a friend who has passed? How long are they going to be gone? And who is going to cover their stuff while they're gone? Who's going to cover their workload? So we just want to bring this up as a symptom of compassion fatigue.
I want to say, too, the must be nice example for a supervisor is that we experienced was that there was a leadership team supervision meeting, and we were all sitting around the table and the supervisors of us says, I'm noticing I'm getting a lot of vacation slips from all of you. And I don't know why you all think you can take vacation because I can't. And so that was kind of her, must be nice. You think you can take vacation? So it's really helpful to have supervisors that role model self-care and encourage your self-care, encourage your vacation time, and support you.
I think, along that line too is once those words come out of our mouths, they're really hard to take back. So just even building, I'm sure that wasn't our administrators or supervisors' desire to do, but we as supervisors and administrators need to be very mindful of our word choices because they can be interpreted in different ways. And I love that all your supervisors participated in this webinar. So we had good discussion about this. What is secondary trauma? I want you to think about direct trauma as the traumatic event is happening to you. And Kay and I teach a lot of classes regarding emotional trauma. We call it Trauma 101. And we also have a Train the Trainer for Trauma 101. So just that realization of a traumatic event to me might not be a traumatic event to Kay. But emotional direct trauma is happening to us. Indirect trauma is when I witness the event, right? I see the event. When we talk about secondary or vicarious trauma, we talk about absorbing the retelling of that event. So if you think about somebody coming in to you and sharing a story, and all of a sudden your heart is racing, you're in the middle of the story, you feel like you're there, that's what we would call secondary or vicarious trauma. I know there's a lot of definitions out there, and people look at this differently, but that helped me kind of put it together, A plus B in my science brain. So the other definition we wanted to shoot.
I want to just say, Beth, too, the compassion fatigue differs from the secondary trauma because you can have both at the same time, but you can just have compassion fatigue if you're, for example, caring for a loved one.
Absolutely.
You might not have both, or you may have both. You may be caring for a loved one and also getting vicarious secondary trauma at work by reading files or by seeing things or hearing your families talk to you about their emotional trauma.
Absolutely. And sometimes we put up this graphic of these rings and how they overlap. If we were spending more time together, we would talk about that in greater depth. I think it is important to recognize, though, that these really are separate things. So you can have all of these at once. We talk about burnout as a condition defined by chronic workplace stress. So if you think about, we use that term all the time, though. I feel we use it sometimes about other people. Oh, she's so burned out. She's crispy fried. Oh, he's burned out. But it's really about workplace stress. So if you imagine, let's say I'm a case manager for organization A, and my job duties for organization B would be exactly the same job duties, but I would have relief. If I moved to job B, I'd have a sense of relief working for a different organization with the same duties. That's really burnout. And burnout is truly about the workplace, where compassion fatigue, vicarious trauma, those can be your home life or your work life, or for some of us, maybe even both. This is just a funny, exhaustipated, so don't be calling in tomorrow exhaustipated before the weekend.
So what we're talking about here is more than just your typical stress where, let's say, you wake up late and you spill coffee all over yourself, which I did this morning. This is, again, talking about absorbing like a sponge other people's emotional trauma. And most of us have never had training on this topic. I was a therapist for a number of years and never got this information through my master's program or on the job. We're doing a little bit better with that in the United States, but we have a long ways to go. I have a friend who's a nurse for over 30 years, has never had this topic. So let's look at your self-assessment. Can you tell me if you've, in the chat, if you have completed that or have at least looked at it? It is a handout that was put in the chat. And we're just going to go through some of these signs and symptoms. And if you could tell me, we'll go over the first list, and that's physical signs and symptoms. What are some that you have noticed that happened to you for having headaches? Insomnia? Yes. Body feeling heavy, just sore? Yes. Okay.
Somebody talked about how tired they are. I totally get that depletion of energy.
Okay. Next slide, please. So physical signs and symptoms show up first. And what do we tend to do? We tend to put a Band-Aid on them, take a, Tylenol, ignore them, right? I'm a big one for ignoring my physical signs. So this is my story. I have 3 children, 3 boys, and they're all lovely people now. But at the time, they were all 3 boys, teen boys, living at home. I was a single mom, and they all tended to go through crisis all at the same time. And so for a 5-year period, I had a really difficult time. I was taking all this stress in, and it affected me physically. In a period of 3 years, I had 2 hip replacements, and this was in age of 50 and 53. So I just kind of swallowed the stress, and it just came out through my hips. I just had a lot of adrenaline, a lot of cortisol, and it came out that way. So if our body is telling us something, we need to listen to it. And here are some other ones. What I'd like you to do is write down, either on that assessment or a piece of paper, just writing down what are some other physical signs and symptoms that are true for you, because everybody's signs and symptoms are different. It's not a cookie-cutter approach to this. You have to really be in tune to what your body is telling you, and then the next part is being intentional and trying to get that released every day. So do you have changes in eating and sleeping? Are you starting to get more rashes? Swallowing our stress leads to a lot of the gut issues like diverticulitis and those types of gut issues, muscle joints, arthritis. So write down for you what it looks like. Some people tell us, they have that jaw condition, clenching their teeth and their jaw. What is that, TMJ? So, Beth, do you want to explain the TUMS?
Yes. I was going to say a couple things. One of them is I really appreciate people writing in the chat what their symptoms are. I think it's gutsy to do that. But the reason we ask you to do that, if we were in a room, we'd be doing this in a small group discussion. But we want you to know you aren't alone, that these are really, really common. So as we teach across the nation, some people, this is like a wake-up call. I had no idea. I've been to my doctor numerous times, and I know, Kay, you can share your story about what your doctor said about your the questions they asked when you went into your doctor about your lower back pain?
Nothing. They didn't connect it back to my stress at all. There was no questions about my stress level or compassion fatigue.
And to me, that is amazing because we really do know physiologically what these chemicals do to our body now, that adrenaline and the cortisol and on top. So I love the Tums bottle. When I was doing protection and safety, I spent a lot of time with law enforcement officers, a lot of time in the county attorney's office, and just a lot of time in my peer's office. Somebody was always the keeper of the Tums. Someone could always pull out this big thing of Tums, and we would dive into it like it was a candy bowl. Let's see if I can get the next.
So let's look at behavioral signs and symptoms. How does it look? What does it look like in your behavior when you're starting to experience compassion fatigue or secondary trauma? Did you used to have a drink when you came home from work pre-COVID, and now your glass looks like this, right? You're Betty Whiting it. You used to have a glass, and now you have a box of wine. Are you avoiding certain people? And attrition means that you go to work, but you're not really there. You're playing trivia crack, or you're on Facebook, and you're pretending that you're working, but you're not really. Or you just go to work for the paycheck. And a lot of us don't want to say that we've had compromised care for the people we serve. A lot of us want to just say, you know, it doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect my work. It doesn't affect how I deal with people. But I've seen it happen. When one of my sons was going on a lot of behavioral health appointments across the state, I could tell which professionals had compassion fatigue and burnout and secondary trauma, and which ones were really on top of their games. And so it does make an impact. So write down for you, what are some other behavioral signs and symptoms? And Beth, the next slide will go through some of those. So write down behavioral. Are you impatient? For me, I was always impatient, and I wanted to isolate, and I would go to movies and meetings, and I would just want to get right to the agenda. You know, I didn't want to see pictures of your baby. I didn't want to talk to people. I just wanted to get to the agenda and move on. And I knew from that I was experiencing a sign. So you're putting in some of your behavioral, detached, avoiding people, not wanting to socialize, moody, lack of patience, lack of trust. Okay?
I think that's really good. I appreciate people being willing to share those.
So Beth, can you go back one?
Yep.
So here's some psychological symptoms. So there's three. There's the physical, the behavioral, and then this is the last category of psychological. So do you tend to detach? Do you not want to talk to your supervisor? You know, I found like I didn't want to go to one more staff potluck.
That's true.
Do you have, minimizing or dismissing suffering? I don't have as bad as Beth has it. Do you want to explain moral distress, Beth?
So moral distress is when you know the right thing to do, but it can't happen because of your policies or rules or maybe the laws or state statutes. Probably the easiest example of moral distress is from my life as a protection and safety worker. Just that idea that you worked very, very hard to have this child return to the biological parent. The child's been in foster care. You go to the hearing, child's all ready to return home, parents are ready to have the child return home, things are great, and the judge says, I'm not ordering it. This child has to stay in foster care for another 6 months. So that's moral distress. When you know the right thing, but you just can't make it happen because of those rules or an order, or maybe for some of us it has to do with insurance and billing, all those good things.
So me texting my boss, are we still on for today? Boss, yes, you don't need to text me this every morning. We are still on for work every day, Monday through Friday. I've had coworkers ask me, okay, I'm crying as I'm driving into work. Is that a sign? Yes, that is a sign. I had another coworker say, I visualize running over my coworkers in the parking lot. Is that a sign? I said, yes, that is a sign. So write down, or you put in the chat and write down anything. Here's some more psychological signs and symptoms. So write down in the chat or on your own piece of paper what are true for you. A lot of us in this field think, if I don't do this, nobody can do it. I'm the one wearing the cape today. I always felt like I needed to do more for this family that I was working with. And a lot of us have difficulty separating personal and professional lives, which I think is even harder with COVID sometimes because a lot of us are working from home. And so what are some rituals that you use to separate your personal and professional lives? If you could write some of those down. I know, for example, someone told us that their laptop is in their bedroom, but when they're done for the day, they cover it, so with a towel or a blanket or something, so that they're done for the day. That signifies the end of the day.
I love it. Somebody wrote, I always leave my phone at work. I turn off my work cell phone at a certain time. That's great. I think that's really difficult I'm envy of that skill, that being able to turn that off. That's a skill I'm still working on. It's hard for me at home because it feels like everything's right here all the time. My laptop's here. I can easily access everything, and in my head I'm going to get ahead a little bit. So I appreciate that some of you have breaks built in. You already have plans. My adult son, who's in sales, told me, and he works for a company that sells auto body paint, so a whole different line of work. But some of the people who work in that field were telling him the way I separate work and home when I'm working from home in my office, at the end of the day, I get up and I walk around the block outside and then go back into my house. And I thought, that's brilliant. It's a great way to separate, however you can make that happen. So if you've checked a lot of boxes on here on your self-assessment, that's just telling you that this is a red flag, that this is something that you really should look at and consider, and hopefully try some of these tools that we're going to talk to you about. So speaking of tools we're going to talk to you about, here are some. Hopefully they are new ones, going beyond eating kale and taking a bubble bath. Hopefully these, when we say self-care, a lot of people just groan, because they're tired of hearing that. So we wanted to give you some ideas on some new tools, hopefully things that you haven't considered before, and we're going to go through these. So the first one I would like to share with you is the ProQual. And you can Google this. It's a very easy website to access. It's very well researched. I made the mistake of printing off the manual just by accident. You know how you print something, you don't look how many pages. And at that point in time, several years ago, it was probably 400 some pages thick. So it's very well researched, but it's such an easy tool to take. It will take you online maybe 5 minutes. You don't want to take it on your worst day ever. You don't want to take it on your best day ever. But the idea is it's going to measure your compassion fatigue, so you're going to want that number low. It's going to measure your burnout. You want that number low. And it's going to measure your compassion satisfaction. So you want that number high. It's going to tell you, based on these 21 questions, where you are with all of these and where you are compared to other people in the field. Another option for this now is the Provider Resilience app, and it's a free app. You can download it. When you read it, it's geared more towards maybe a therapist or a clinical person, but you can easily adapt it for your needs. So great tools. We always tell people when we're done today, please take the pro call within probably the next week. Put some of the tools in place. Go back, take the pro qual again in 6 months and see if the tools are helping you so you can kind of measure your progress if you're hitting the mark.
Grounding. What is grounding? Grounding is not a relaxation exercise. It's getting centered, a safe place. It's focusing outward rather than inward. With negative feelings. So we're going to help give you some ideas on different types of grounding. This is me driving on the interstate down in Florida. So I might use grounding during that time. Beth gave me this, what are those called? Diffusers for the car so that I could put lavender in it because I get so uptight driving on the interstates down here. So when would we want to use it? If we are feeling emotional pain or you're starting to feel like a panic attack, you're listening to those emotional trauma stories, you want to be more sharp and focused, or if you're just feeling confused and a lack of focus.
Somebody wrote in the chat, that probably made you fall asleep last LOL. I think this thing, I'll give you a great example of grounding. So when we first get on the webinar, there's always glitches. And today was my sound. I couldn't hear all of you. So when Kay gave that meditation, it allowed me to become more grounded and better prepared for the rest of the webinar because, of course, you have that panic. You want to help all these people that are on the webinar, and you can't hear anything. So grounding is a tool. Once you practice it a little bit, then when you get into a little bit of a glitch like I got into, it's accessible to you. And it's easy to get into that.
Which is what you just said. It needs to be practiced. So practice it during the calmer times, and then you can access those different types of grounding strategies they're more accessible to you. And try different ones. You can use them anywhere, anytime. Nobody has to know you're using them. You can start by saying, okay, where's my anxiety at on a scale from 0 to 10? 10 is high. So putting that in place when you're starting to feel anxious, and then do the grounding exercise, and then again do the scale and see if that's helped you. You don't want to talk about anything, no negative feelings. You want to stay neutral. So let's say one of your grounding exercises is I'm going to look around the room and just identify everything that is blue. And then you look at this one thing that's blue and go, I don't really like that shade of blue. You don't need to do that. Just be neutral. So these are the different types, and we're going to go through those. So here's a mental grounding exercise that's very popular. We use it with kids and adults and university students, and you can use it with the families that you serve. Let's try it right now. So you don't have to say this out loud, but just look around the room using your 5 senses. All right, so take a deep breath. Inhale. Exhale. You don't have to write it down. Just look around and identify 5 things that you can see. Four things that you can feel. Three things that you can hear. Two things that you could smell. And one thing you can taste. So what does that do for you if you're feeling anxious? It helps you get centered and grounded, and you're not thinking about what got you anxious in the first place. And that's what's so great about grounding, is it takes us out of our head and gets us more feet on the earth. So there's different mental grounding techniques you can use. You can say the alphabet backwards, count by 7s, whatever works for you. Sometimes I'll do the categories game where I list to myself all the stupid reality shows that I watch. So whatever works for you.
I really like the idea of, say, a safety statement or a mantra. Those have been really helpful to me, just to stay in the moment and to remember where I am and focus on that breath.
So here are some soothing types of grounding. And this was my lady lounge when I lived in Nebraska. You know, I told you I have 3 boys, so when they moved out, I created my own space with all white, frilly, lacy things. And soothing things can be being in your safe place or visualizing a safe place. Maybe you have a safe chair in your home, maybe not during the winter for most of you, but maybe there's some outside space that you like. So thinking about that, where is your safe space? We had a woman who told us that when she needed a safe place, she would go in her office and shut the door, and on the back of the door there was a poster of Bon Jovi. And to her, that was heaven. You know, she just shut the door and spent some time with Bon Jovi. So, again, just thinking about soothing kinds of statements like Beth was saying. There's this thing on YouTube where this person told us they had double monitors, and so they always had the beach in Hawaii pulled up on one of their monitors, and it was live. You know, it's a live feed, so you know you can always just visualize that you're there. So
I also like the healing frequencies on YouTube and ASMR videos. I've noticed more and more people are trying those out, the soothing sounds and sound frequencies. Some people really feel like they benefit from them. I'm almost sure they're available on that app we use, K2. I'm not for sure, but they're a great tool. Try it out.
Some people like the weighted products. They feel safety from wearing compression or weighted types of products, blankets, but they are all a variety of different products. This little girl has a lap blanket, and one of the child advocacy groups that we worked with, they gave every child that was going to go into court one of those weighted lap blankets, which I thought was a really cool idea.
I feel like those were the Christmas gift of the year. I noticed them available a lot more in our small town at our Target and Walmart. And people were talking about them, but I feel people really do find them soothing, which is awesome.
And, you know, a soothing thing for one of my sons was just the hoodies, and just putting the earbuds in and putting a hoodie on. That was his safe place. So go ahead, Beth.
These are physical grounding tools, and I was noticing the chat box, someone said, I got one for Christmas, and I was skeptical, but I'm surprised how much deeper I'm sleeping. So that's awesome. All of us have different needs to calm our parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems, and sometimes you have different needs at different times. That's why Kay and I try to share all these tools with you, because you might have to change it up or try something different. It's not a one-size-fits-all. So physical grounding, we look at even washing our hands or showering in the morning or the afternoon or evening, whatever your gig is, can be very, very grounding. Focusing on that, the feel of the water on your hands. You know, is it cool or hot? How do my hands, you can even do the sensory. How does it smell? How does it feel? What do I hear? I use a little imagery when I'm showering that I did, that I'm rinsing off things that maybe aren't serving me well, and renewing through water the things that are going to make it for a great day. So there's all different kinds of tools. You can touch various objects around you. Dig your heels into the floor. Any of you who have ever taken a yoga class, mountain pose, Tadasana is very grounding. Anytime your hands and your feet are on the floor is very grounding. Some instructors will talk about your sits bones. Right now, feeling the sits bones in the chair can be very grounding. Jumping up and down, just that full body baby stretch, right? When we're little, when we're babies, you think about how a newborn yawns and they stretch their arms and legs out and they get that big yawn. Those are very grounding things. Our bodies are wired to crave that.
I was going to point out that Terry's feet.
Right there. There they are.
One of our coworkers, well, first of all, Beth and I, we always have some sort of grounding stone or something. We carry it around or have it on our desk. I've been using it through this webinar. But one of our colleagues, she has river rocks in a tub underneath her desk, and she just takes her sandals off then during the day and rubs her feet on the rocks, and that to her is very grounding.
She's very much a person who loves nature and loves being outside. And so this is bringing, in Nebraska, we can't be barefoot outside. Or for those of you, we were talking about Des Moines today too, the idea that you bring the outside in some way, and this has really worked for her. So it's an awesome tool.
I just want to say, somebody said on their local news that gave tips for the commute home. One tip to transition was to plunge your hands into room temperature water. So it acts as a transition between school, work, and home life.
Ooh, I like that one.
People, washing their face to end the day, washing your hands. So if grounding doesn't work, what do? You just try more. You try different ones, see what you like, different types. On our website, we have lots of ideas for grounding activities. Just keep trying. Don't give up. And again, any age can use grounding. I wish as a parent, I would have used more grounding tools with my kids. Because it almost becomes like games,
Yeah, and I think it's an opportunity for you to role model for your kids. If you have kids at home or nieces or nephews that are around, how do we calm ourselves? How do we cope when the waters are rocky? So it's an opportunity to show kids what you do and have them try it out. Most of them we teach them grounding and mindfulness in some of our school programs, and they love this part of it. They naturally get it like that. Well, it's not. There we go. Sorry about that.
So the next tool is mindfulness, and I know we've been talking a lot about that already. The definition is that it's paying attention in a particular way on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. So if you're really interested in mindfulness, John Kabat-Zinn is the guru in the United States. He's a medical doctor and noticed that a lot of his patients who had chronic pain weren't responding to medication. So that's how he first started with mindfulness with his patients, and that it helped them. He has a lot of books, a lot of YouTube. During the pandemic, he was doing daily meditations. So have you ever had an accident where you're sitting down to watch your favorite TV show and you have a bag of chips, and pretty soon you look over and all of your chips are gone, and you don't know why, because you don't even remember eating them. Or this could happen too. This happened to me. We had a coworker, the shoes, she wore two different types of shoes to work and didn't realize it till she got to work. And then this, the dog treat is what happened to me. I went home for lunch and I made a salad, and I thought, okay, well, croutons sound really good on my salad. So I put the croutons on there and I was eating them. I was eating the salad and the croutons, and it was a while before I realized that I put dog treats all over my salad. And I am a mindfulness instructor, right? And so I still have a long ways to go on that.
When they talk about it being a practice, it really is practice. It's every day is a struggle for me.
There's much more research coming on health benefits from mindfulness. These are just some of them, but the research is still showing so much benefits physically, but then also mental health-wise. Mental health-wise, depression and anxiety. Next slide, Beth, please. Helps with sleep, focus and concentration, improves relationships. This is a good book if you're just starting in mindfulness. The reporter Dan Harris talks about how he got into mindfulness, and he has this is a great book, but he also has a good podcast. A lot of corporations, organizations are using mindfulness at work, like Google and Target, because it helps with concentration and efficiency. It increases compassion and social responsibility and helps with stress. Some groups are having things like group meditations at work. There's a lot of myths about mindfulness. We hear from people saying, I can never calm down, I can never clear my head. I'm always thinking of something. Well, that is normal. You can't completely clear your thoughts. And meditation, you don't have to sit like the frog to do meditation or mindfulness. Meditation is just one way to practice mindfulness. You can practice mindfulness all the time in your daily life, while you're washing your hands, while you're walking, when you're doing yoga, tai chi, when you're fishing. You can do mindfulness in every part of your daily life. It's not difficult. We just have to remember to do it. So in a normal situation, what would usually happen is you would have, let's say you're in line for Starbucks and somebody cuts you off in front of you, and what do? You may just blow up, react, call that person out. But with mindfulness, you have a gap, and you can choose how you want to respond. So somebody cuts you off in line, you can say, okay, I'm starting to get angry here. I'm noticing that I'm angry. How do I want to respond in this situation? And then I can choose how I want to respond. These are some apps that we like. We usually put a lot of apps in that don't cost money, or we always try to include apps that have at least some free, something free in them. If you want to put in the chat any kind of apps that you are using that you like for mindfulness and meditation, that would just benefit everybody. So please do so.
So the next tool we're going to share with you is Low Impact Debriefing, or LID, and it's the idea of just taking the lid off, right? Letting off a little steam. And the idea behind this is we want to be able to discuss with our peers or with our supervisor maybe something that was emotionally traumatic to us, but at the same time we want to be able to discuss it. We don't want to spread slime all over the office, right? We want to protect our peers and our coworkers and keep them at work and keep them able to come back to work in the best capacity they can be. So it's just 4 easy steps. So the first one is self-awareness. The second one is fair warning. Third is consent. And fourth is limited disclosure. So Kay and I are going to quickly, because we're going to run out of time, role model this out for you. So the first step is self-awareness. So I know the peer that I'm debriefing with knows what these 4 are. The second one is fair warning. So when I go in to do this low-impact debriefing with Kay, I'm going to say, hey, Kay, I have something I need to talk about. I feel like I need to do LID. It's regarding a pet or an animal. Are you okay with listening to that today?
Yes, I have time. Why don't we go back to my office, and then I can go back into my office and sit down and get grounded. You know, I can get ready. She's told me what it's about, so I can sort of prepare to listen.
And I think the other part of this, too, is even if we're doing this via Zoom, it gives the listener a chance to make sure the door's closed, right, to make sure they're in an area. And Kay might say to me, I can't do this today. I'm not in a good spot or emotionally or physically to hear the story. You can contact Jill. Jill also knows the tools, you know, that kind of thing. So we can give that fair warning. And then I'm going to listen for Kay to give me consent, to say, go ahead and share the story, or I'm not in a good place. And then I'm going to give a limited disclosure to Kay. So there's no research that supports the more graphic the story, the more debriefed I feel. So I'm going to give her some basics of the story, and then if she wants more information or details, she can ask me for them.
So what happens if Beth keeps doing this LID debriefing all over the office for the same event? What would you suggest, Beth, for that?
You know, I think it's really important that if a coworker, a peer is struggling with something where you've heard or you have knowledge that they've done LID debriefing over the same incident several times, we need to be able to reach out to them. And sometimes when we're in the room teaching this workshop, people would say, well, I just tell them to get over it. You know, it's not that big of a deal. And that's our instinct to say that. But to this person, it is a big deal. They've gone through LID debriefing 4 or 5 times regarding the same incident, and it's okay for us to say to them, hey, I can see this is weighing heavy on you. This is bigger than us. How do we get connected to EAP or a therapist who knows our work or a clergy member to help discuss this outside our office and our walls? How can I support you in doing that? And I know that's hard for people sometimes, but I think it's important we keep that in the back of our minds.
This is just a funny, but really the point of it for me is that we should normalize going to a therapist, that it's okay, that it's a sign of strength, because we all need to at certain points of our lives. We all are going to have emotional trauma, and we need maybe some extra help. I know when I was a supervisor, I would tell my staff, okay, I'm checking out now. I'm going to my therapy session. We need to normalize it, just like somebody's in the hospital for something physical. We need to talk about it. If somebody has depression, we need to talk about it.
I'm always surprised how many people walk around with anxiety and have never, and I'm not a clinician, so this isn't a diagnosis by any means, but just that idea that we can't talk about it. There's still so much stigma about behavioral health, and I feel like those of us that are working in the field are almost the worst about getting help for ourselves. We're great about telling everybody else what they should do, but we aren't so good about ourselves. This is a tool by Dr. Pat Fisher, who's also part of TEND with our mentor and friend, Francois Mathieu. This is called Hot Walk and Talk, and it's an awesome tool. And we've brainstormed with various groups how to do it via Zoom. Maybe it's one person on an exercise bike and the other person talking it through with them. But how it would work if you were face-to-face is if I saw something very, very traumatic, emotionally traumatic to me, I would grab a friend like Kay and say, Kay, I need to hot walk and talk. Kay would grab 2 bottles of water. She would have me drink as much water as I possibly could, right? We're just going to drink as much water. She's going to encourage me to drink water, and we're going to walk fast, something to get my heart rate up. By walking fast and by drinking water, we're flushing the adrenaline and the cortisol out of my body, and that's what helps prevent that permanent physical damage that emotional trauma can do. If you talk to people who have had a traumatic event, sometimes they will talk about how they're just frozen. They couldn't get out of bed, or they couldn't stand up, or maybe they just took off running, or, you know, all those different examples of how that manifests is that physiological reaction. So if we freeze, it's important that we do something to get the chemicals out of our body. And this hot walk and talk does it. The water flushes out the adrenal glands on the back of our kidneys, which is very, very important. The other thing is Kay is going to ask me while we're walking, Beth, how did this start? What happened next? How did it end? And we might go through the story several times. The benefit of her asking me along the way is so that I don't get stuck in a loop regarding the trauma. If you think about something that happened to you and, you know, the whole incident might have been 15 minutes long, but it's 2 minutes that you keep talking about it, your brain is stuck in that loop. So we always want to remind people, how did it end? How did it start? What happened next? How did it end? And it's a way of putting finality until my heart rate has decreased when I hold still. And you can feel that heaviness leave you if you use this tool.
Also with that tool, that's a tool I wish I would have had as a therapist, because a lot of times I would take things home with me that the students, their issues, and I would worry about them. So I could have gotten everything out while it was happening and at work. So that would have been very beneficial. And the other thing is people can still use the walk and talk even in COVID times. If you're working remotely, you can do it by FaceTime, you know, with another person and walking with your phone. Nature has great benefits, and the research for nature is how many hours per month? Can you guess? How many do you need to benefit being in nature per month? It's 8 hours per month. So it's 120 minutes a week. And I just updated that because Psychology Today in 2019 had an update. So it's 8 hours a month, which a lot of people think it's more. I mean, we usually have guesses like 40, 60. But I think, 8 is doable.
Absolutely.
Obviously, the more, the better.
I just wanted to add that somebody wrote in the chat how after a traumatic event, they can't sleep or they feel jittery. That hot and walk tool might help you get rid of some of those chemicals that's preventing you from calming that sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. So just some ideas there. Or walking out in nature, too. Sometimes it can be very soothing to people. I laughed. This is from our state paper, the Omaha World Herald, but the smartphone is becoming an essential organ. So we need to think about this. When do we get away from media? When do we put down the screens? Do we take a sabbatical once a week? Do we role model this out? If you're a supervisor, and we talked this to our supervisors a little bit about this previously, that idea, Are you one of those people that's emailing late at night and you're, oh, I don't mean for them to read it? Well, as an employee, it's hard not to read an email from your supervisor, even if it's late at night. So just having those conversations and talking about these things and giving yourself a break from media is really important.
These are two good books that we recommend. The Art of Screen Time is if you're a parent and you're kind of struggling with boundaries for kids. It's not about screen bashing. It's more about balance, which is, I know it's hard right now with the pandemic, with COVID, because everybody's on screens more. But we also have on our website, we also have digital detox ideas that we've heard from other people that works for them. So you might want to check that out too if that's one of your goals.
Yeah, and please, if you have some great ones, send them to us.
So positive support is important in the research, not the negative groups, the groups that get together and do the bitch sessions and the venting, though those are fun, and I have been a part of those. The research shows that we're going to get more from the positive support from those more positive coworkers.
Absolutely.
Helps our resiliency.
Oh, geez. Sorry. I got the happy clicker going on my end. So HeartMath is a fabulous software. You can put it on your computer. It's an app on your phone. It is rather expensive last time I checked. It's well researched. The idea is it's measuring the coherence between your heart rate and your breathing. So if your heart is racing and you're holding your breath or not breathing all the way out, it's going to look like this when you see it come across your screen. Another thing that makes your heart and your breath, it's frustration or anger. When we get coherence, we get this nice smooth curve, right? Our breath slows down. We can breathe fully. Our heart rate slows down. This is where we want to be the majority of the time, unless you're running from a tiger. So this appreciation, the blue, is where we want to be. The idea behind HeartMath, it's a biofeedback tool. If you see it and practice HeartMath 2 to 3 times a day, you can easily see all of a sudden you're, oh my gosh, I am holding my breath. This is what this feels like. It connects the mind and the body, and then also teaches you how to bring it back down. There's also some fun games on there. Let's see, 219. What you wrote, Kay? This is a pose called Legs Up the Wall. It's absolutely a very supportive pose. I teach this almost in every class I do. I teach it to the people I'm teaching in their IOP, their intensive outpatient services for drug alcohol recovery. Everybody loves this pose. It's very relaxing. Kids like it. So you simply scoot your sits bones next to the wall and slide your legs up. Now, this is a big quad stretch, so maybe your sits bones don't get close to the wall. Maybe you bend your knees. Maybe you put your legs on an ottoman or a chair in front of you, but placing the hands to the side. This is a pose that's totally supported. So it's you become mindful, you become peaceful. It's a restful pose. 2 great books that help us put that mind-body connection are Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score and Gabor Mate's When the Body Says No. They're excellent books. Gabor also wrote In the Realm of the Hungry Ghost, which talks about emotional trauma and addiction. For those of you who are maybe working with people in recovery or recovery communities, it's an excellent book.
Beth, why don't you just do TechNet, because that's such a good one.
Okay, so real quickly, we're going to do TechNet. The first step is, ground. Of course, if you have injuries to your neck or your shoulders, please don't do this activity or modify it. Maybe you just want to use your hands and your wrists. Always listen to your body. If this causes you pain, it's not for you today, and that's okay. So let's start by our feet on the floor, simply taking a nice full breath in, holding that, and exhaling out. Nice job. And then we're going to do just some neck circles here, as big or as small as you need, but really focusing on the exhale, allowing your head to hang heavy, right? Heads are really heavy. Just let gravity pull that down. If you feel like you're stuck, stay there and take another breath. Let's go ahead and change the direction of that motion, just allowing our neck to loosen up a bit. One more time around and coming back to neutral. The next one is sitting tall in your chair. I want you to inhale your shoulders up to your ears. Keep them up there. Exhale your chin to your chest. Keeping the chin down now. Inhale, roll the shoulders back and all the way down. Exhale, lift the chin. Make sure your shoulders are staying down. Let's do this one more time together. So inhale, squeeze them tight. Exhale, drop the chin. Keep the chin down. Inhale, roll those shoulders back and down. Zip the shoulder blades to the spine all the way down. Exhale, take the chin to the ceiling now. And take a nice full breath in while that chin is up and the shoulders are dropped. Take a full exhale out, all the way out. Maybe you want to add a sigh, a nice. Come back to neutral and see if you feel some more openness in your heart center and your shoulders. Maybe you feel a little bit more relaxed. So it's called tech neck. It's an easy one to do. It's accessible to most of us. If you have problems with shoulders or necks or whatever, you can do it with your hands even. Just connect it to your breath. So it's an opportunity to become grounded and restful.
So handouts are available in the chat box. And are you recharging yourself as much as your phone? I mean, when you get on that red zone, are you recharging yourself? So at this point, you're probably thinking, I've heard all this crap before, right? But are you intentionally doing some self-care? So on a piece of paper, if you could, I want you to write what is something you can do, 1% change for yourself. It doesn't have to be a big, huge deal. Maybe it means you're going to try meditation, or you're going to look at an app. You're going to try heart math. Walk and talk. What are some things that you can make a commitment for yourself? If you write it down and if you share it with another person, share it back and forth with each other, you will hopefully be accountable for it. So if you are able to believe in Santa for 8 years, you can believe in yourself for 5 minutes, right? So I want you to think about the 3 most important people that in the world to you, that you care most about in this world, okay? You got those names in your head? Shaking your head, yes, you do. Okay. All right, so I want you to raise your hands high. High. If you said yourself, which I know you did not, do not lie to me. I know you did not raise your hand. We usually get one person. And people, we just spent an hour and a half. We just spent an hour and a half talking about the need for self-care because you can't give what you don't have. Self-care is not selfish. You don't need to feel guilty for taking care of yourself, because the more that you replenish your bucket, the more you can give. So these are some daily self-care questions you can ask yourself. And here is our website and our email. And I believe that there will also be a survey link for an evaluation. It's just 3 questions. To give us some feedback for today. So we really value your time, and we hope we've given you some new tools to try. Thank you for the work that you do.
Yes, thank you all. And it was such an honor to be with you, and thanks for your patience as we struggle through sometimes. I greatly appreciate your time, and thank you for asking us to do this.
Yes. Our appreciation, as you'll see in the chat, lots of thank yous. It was great. I think I was able to answer questions as they came in through the chat, but if anyone has anything you'd like to ask, feel free to type it in there, and we'll do our best to get you a response before our time expires. It was great. Thank you once again, Beth and Kay. You just bring such a calm to my hectic life. Can we do this every day?
Sure.
It's good for me, too, so I feel selfish doing it sometimes because it's a good reminder.
Yes, it is. Can you pass to the next slide for me, whoever's got the baton right now?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yes, I can. There we go.
Great. And one more. I just want to remind everyone, we do have our Management and Leadership Training Conference coming up next week. If you can believe it, it's here February 3 through 5, and you can still register. So go to the website and get registered if you haven't already. It'd be wonderful to have you be a part of that and hear our great keynote speakers and attend some of our workshops. So again, that is available to you if you are able to participate and can get registered. And finally, the last slide has contact information for myself and for Arlene, co-directors of the CARES project here at the partnership, and our team leader, Erin. We established this training because we heard from community action agencies all across the country. We know you're under stress. We know you're working extra hard. In many cases, you're working in settings that you've never worked before in terms of doing virtual applications and not sitting at a table with a family in the way that you did before, so you may be doing virtual home visits. We understand that. We heard you, and we've presented Kay and Beth here to equip you with the tools to make it possible for you to continue to do this work, to be refreshed, to be healthy, and to be strong, because we are about helping people and changing lives, and we can't do that if we're not healthy and strong. So thank you to all of our participants. You did a great job answering the chat responses to gather your responses to trauma and the strategies that you pursue when you do deal with it. So appreciate you being on the webinar and learning with us. And again, thank you to Kay and Beth for sharing your expertise.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. If you have questions,
you
can definitely contact us on the website. So feel free.
Thank you.